my channel. So for today, I wanted to talk about all the books that I've read so far for this year. Although I have not read very many, I figured it would be good to do a video about the ones that I've read up to this point because truly I am already starting to forget some of these storylines, and I just know that by the end of this year I am going to forget all of them if I don't start talking about them now. A little disclaimer, I'm also filming with my front-facing camera and not like my back-facing camera. At least I think that's the proper terminology for them. So fingers crossed this is in focus the entire time. I'm going to try to talk about these pretty quickly. One, because I'm anxious about filming with my front-facing camera, but two, I don't want to make this a super long video for y'all. But yeah, if you've seen some of my past videos, you'll know that I have a goal to read 12 to 24 books for this year. Spoiler alert, I've only read 5 so far and we are almost done with July. So I'm hoping this video will help jumpstart me into being like, okay, we only have half the year left, let's get this on the road. As you can tell hopefully by the vibe of this video, it's a very cozy video I hope that I have ready for y'all. So feel free to grab your favorite blanket, maybe a drink, maybe a snack, maybe light a candle, put on your fairy lights, whatever it is to get comfortable, because these are the books that I read so far for 2022. The first book that I read is called Best Friends. It is a novel written by Martha Moody. It looks like this. Quick disclaimer before I jump into any of these books, in case you haven't seen the past video that I made about the books that I've read. As someone who loves watching YouTube videos and TikToks about books, I hate when there are spoilers. So as a disclaimer, I will not be trying to give any spoilers away about these books. They're pretty much just a synopsis and what I thought about them. And I also like to give them a rating of my overall, if I liked it and if I'll read it again kind of vibe. But anyhow, this book I read at the beginning of the year, so it's kind of distant in my memory what it's about, but going off based on what it says on the back, it is about 2 best friends that meet in college and then it just goes on their journey of their life for many years down the road, like way past college. And I believe I bought this from a Goodwill last summer. It just looked really interesting. It was a book about best friends. I love reading about friendships. And I remember something specifically about this book that kind of intrigued me was how different the 2 friends were in this friendship. They both came from different backgrounds and had different beliefs, and I thought it was really nice to see how they affected each other's life. It was a good book overall, I would say. Not super memorable, and I don't see myself picking it up to read it anytime soon. So for that reason, I think I'm going to rate it a 7 out of 10. It was a pretty solid book, but it wasn't like anything spectacular or something. So that was the first book. The second book I read, I made a little list of all the books in order that I read, was actually a book that came into our store. So at the place that I work, we have lots of books that come in all the time, and sometimes I'll see some that I just want to read like during my lunch break. So since I don't have it right in front of me, I'll put a little picture on the screen. It was Bridget. I have never read this book before, and I think that's why it intrigued me to read it when it first came into the store. I loved the movie as a child. It was very devastating, very gut-wrenching, and yes, it made me cry every time I watched it as a kid, but when it came in through the store, I was like, how have I never read this book? Like, considering I loved it so much as a child, like the movie, you'd think I would have read the book. So when it came in, it was a no-brainer that I had to read it, and it was a really small book too, so it was a really simple read. I think I read it within a week. And I kind of felt stupid reading it, I'm not gonna lie. Like, some of my coworkers were like, are you reading Bridge to Terabithia? And I was like, yeah, I know it's a children's book, but like I never read it as a kid, so I thought, why not read it now? And also I was like worried about putting it into this video because I was like letting others' thoughts about reading children's book as an adult get to me, and I just wanted to encourage y'all that if you wanted to read books and get into books or get back into them, I said this in my last video that I made about books, but if those books for you are books that on topics that people don't understand or are children's books or whatever they are, if they interest you, you should read them because you're going to finish them and you're going to enjoy them so much more. When I tell you, I not only loved this book because it dove deeper into the story than the movie did, but also just because of like the storytelling in this book. It sticks out in my memory how much I enjoyed this book. It reminded me why I loved reading so much as a kid. It was very colorful in its details, and you just felt like you were really there in the book, you know? So yeah, that book was fantastic. I loved it. So I think I'm gonna have to rate it a 9 out of 10. I don't see myself rereading this one anytime soon either. But honestly, there are a couple parts in that book that made me tear up a little bit, and I think that's a reason why it's really stuck out to me. Alright, the third book I read is called The Reading List. It's a novel by Sarah Nisha Adams. It looks like this. This book was given to me by one of my dearest friends, Jamie, and if you saw my last video that I posted, you would know that she gave me a whole box of books. I'm so blessed by her for it, and I'm still trying to work through all those books that she sent me. But inside each book, she also gives me a note. So with her permission, of course, I'm going to insert a photo of what the note says. The note for this book reads, "Possibly wholesome. This book was sitting on the advanced reader shelf at work. That just means it's free for employees. I feel like it seems wholesome and you might want some of that." And I think this was an accurate way to describe this book. So essentially this book is about different people. Wow, that sounds like every synopsis ever, I'm so sorry. But bear with me, it's about different people's lives and how they all intermix via this reading list that's found around a local library. And it's really cute because it references a lot of classic books that you might have read or at least heard about. So it's a great book for those who are kind of in the book scene, if you will, because it references different books. But also is a really cute story about friendship and finding interest in hobbies and people that were unexpected. And it was kind of inspiring in a way, actually. I kind of really digged it. It did do the thing where it had different people's perspective per chapter kind of thing. And again, if you've watched other videos of mine about books, I really struggle personally with like keeping track of like different POVs. But since all the characters had vastly different backgrounds and like things that were happening to them, this was a lot easier for me to follow each different plot line for the characters. It was definitely wholesome, it was definitely cute. I definitely will reread again. So I think I'm gonna give this book a solid 9 out of 10. It was a great read. Jamie, thank you again for sending me all these books. I swear I'm still trying to get through all of them. I just have so many books that I keep getting or buying or what have you, and we will get there one day, I promise. So that was the third book that I've read so far. The fourth book was another children's book that came into my store. I'll insert another photo here. It was none other than Stuart Little. And this one came to the store, it was Bridget all over again. It was, I watched this movie as a child. How did I never read this book also as a child? The book was much different than the movie in my opinion. I don't know if anyone else has read the book or has only read the book and never seen the movie, but if you have seen both, please let me know your thoughts down below. But I thought it was very different than the movie, and I thought that was really cool. It kind of reminded me when I read Mary Poppins as a little girl, and like it was similar to the movie, but like when I read Mary Poppins I was like, this is like a different Mary Poppins like in my head that's being portrayed than like the Julie Andrews version of Mary Poppins, if you know what I mean. So anyhow, that's kind of how I felt with this Stuart Little, and I actually kind of dig that. Like I love reading books and it has a different perspective than the movie. However, I will say if I read the book first and then the movie interprets it differently, because that's like the order that I consumed those medias in, then I'm not happy about it. That was me with the Hunger Games series. I read them. Well, technically I saw the first movie and then read the entire series and then watched the rest of the movies, but for movies 2, 3, and 4 of the Hunger Games series, I read those books before those movies. And generally it followed the book pretty well, but there were certain details that weren't in there or were different. And I remember being a teenager and being absolutely mad about it. I was like, how could they do this? This series is so good. How could they switch it around like that? It is very interesting that if I've seen the movie first and then read the book, I feel like I'm getting more background into the characters and I get more of like where it's coming from, and I have like a bigger appreciation for it. So anyhow, that was me with Stuart Little. Again, another small book, another very easy read. Again, I think I read it in a week, and it was really sweet. Again, another book that just reminded me of childhood and how I love all the details that are put into children's book, and like just how easy those books make you feel like you can enter into that world and you're like right there with them. I know I already said that with the Bridget book, but like, I don't know, I just really enjoyed reading both of these books. Again, not a book that I see myself reading again anytime soon. I think I'll rate it another 7 out of 10. It was a solid book and it was a very easy read. And it was really cute, honestly. Like, they have some cute storylines in there. And also, I have not seen the movie since like I was a little child, so I could be remembering the movie wrong, but I did appreciate like the little storylines that were in there. It was cute. Alright, and then the last book that I've read so far for the year is called The Diplomat's Daughter. It's a novel by Karen Tannibal. I hope I'm saying the name right, but it looks like this. I just finished this book a couple days ago, and wow, love Love this book. So good. I believe it's technically called a historical fiction. That's another thing that I get insecure about with books is like book genres. I'm not too sure what classifies what into what genre, and so when I pick up books, if it doesn't like say what it is, like I can give my best guess, but like is that what it is? I don't know. So bear with me, I'm not like a pro at this by any means, but I believe the term is historical fiction for this novel. And I loved it. It reminded me a lot of that book that I read in my last book video. I can't remember the title, but I'll insert a photo of the book here too from the last video that I posted. It kind of reminded me about that one because this was also about World War II, and it also featured young love and the different struggles that these demographics had to go through during that time period. And I don't know, there's just something really sweet and endearing about it. This book also takes you through different people's POV, but I think since I was just genuinely so invested in the storyline, I barely even noticed that we were switching between people sometimes. And like not in a bad way, like it wasn't wishy-washy, like it like made it clear like the different people, but like I think since I was so invested in the storyline, it's like when you watch a TV show or something, like you just can't help but be just in there and like actively reading it and not passively. Like I felt like I was really absorbing like every detail of the book, if that makes any sense. But yeah, definitely loved this book. I would love to reread this book again, and I think I'm gonna have to give it a solid 10 out of 10. If I'm not mistaken, that's the same rating I gave to that other book in that video. I think it just is like one of my niche topics that I like to read about. I mean, it's not really that niche, but like in high school specifically, I loved reading about World War II, I loved reading about the Holocaust, I loved reading about Anne Frank, and so I feel like these historical fictions, although not like necessarily completely accurate descriptions or accounts of specific people from history, I think they just like expand the view on everything and the scope of everything that was happening during that time, instead of like getting so specific to like a single person in history. So I think that's why I'm really enjoying these specific genre books, if that makes any sense. Yeah, that is the 5th book that I've read so far for 2022. I know it doesn't look like much, but considering where I was a year ago with me still being in school or the first half of 2021 and not having any time to focus on books, I'm glad that for at least this first half of 2022 that I have been able to focus on books. And I hope that by the end of this year, when I do a wrap up of the second half of the year, that my stack of books will be that much bigger to show you guys. But yeah, if you guys have been reading any books or if you're in the middle of any good books, please leave them down below. I'd love to have more recommendations of what to read. I do have a very full bookshelf of books that I have not read yet, so I'm sure I'll have plenty to choose from for the rest of 22. I'm super excited to see how many more I'll get done and get to share with you guys. Alright y'all, as always, I hope you're having a great day, but if you're not, that's okay too. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!